Rate investigation techniques for Cambridge IGCSE Chemistry. You are required to describe and evaluate practical methods for investigating the rate of reaction, where there is a change of mass, where a volume of gas is produced, and where there's a change in turbidity or cloudiness, perhaps through the formation of a precipitate. The rate of reactions that produce a gas can be followed as the mass of the reaction mixture will decrease if the gas is allowed to escape. An example from the syllabus is the decomposition of hydrogen peroxide catalyzed by manganese 4 oxide. 2 hydrogen peroxides to 2 waters and 1 oxygen. So the experimental setup would be the reaction mixture in a conical flask with the catalyst, loose-fitting cotton wool allowing the gas to escape, conical flask, and we would take an initial mass. As time goes on, the mass will go down. The amount of oxygen escaping can be deduced from the difference between the initial mass and the mass at any particular time. So the mass of oxygen that has escaped, that has been produced, in this example would be 125.93 minus 124.32, the initial minus the mass at a particular time. So as the gas escapes, the mass decreases. That decrease in mass is the same as the mass of the gas that escapes. So here is some typical experimental data from a decomposition of hydrogen peroxide. We have the decrease in mass, which could also be written or recorded as the mass of oxygen produced, and time. So as time goes on in minutes, the mass decrease gets larger. That is, the mass of oxygen produced increases. Now we can plot that as a graph. Time on the x-axis, the mass decrease on the y-axis, and we'll see that there's a gradual change in the gradient of the graph. So we start off with a steeper gradient, and that gradient becomes less steep. That is, the rate slows with time. So as time goes on, the gradient of the reaction graph decreases. That means that the rate of reaction slows with time. I'd like you just to think for one moment, why is that? Why does the rate, and this is absolutely typical of all chemical reactions, why is it that the rate slows with time? Stop the class, have a think, speak out an answer, restart when you're ready. Okay, so, well, the reason that the rate slows is that the concentration of the reactant, in this case the hydrogen peroxide, is decreasing with time. So as the concentration decreases, rate of reaction will decrease. So we see that in the gradient of the curve of the reaction data at various points as time progresses. Now, a secondary experiment to this would be to filter and dry the manganese 4 oxide residue to show that its mass does not change. So an initial measurement of the mass and then a final measurement of the mass would be required. What does that tell you about manganese 4 oxide? It tells you that manganese 4 oxide is a catalyst. It is not used up in the reaction. In other words, it is not a reactant. Now we'll look at some ways of measuring and collecting the volume of a product gas. So we can follow the rate of a reaction for producing a gas by collecting and measuring the volume of gas at regular time intervals. So the reaction of magnesium ribbon with an excess of dilute hydrochloric acid, for instance, would produce hydrogen gas. So we set up with a gas syringe, a sealed conical flask. We need to make sure that the initial reading on the gas syringe is 0 and that we start the timer at the moment that the magnesium coil is added to the dilute acid. If we record the volume of gas collected every 10 seconds, then we will see that the plunger of the gas syringe will move backwards and we can take some accurate readings of the volume of gas against time. Again, maybe every 10 seconds, it may be more, depending on the rate of reaction. Now, a typical plot of the data might look like this, where we've got time in seconds against the volume of gas collected. A maximum is reached when all of the magnesium has reacted. So I'm assuming here that we have an excess of acid. So all the magnesium has reacted so that at a certain point, after 80 seconds, the volume of gas collected no longer increases, that is, the reaction has ended, all the magnesium has reacted. So we would say that the reaction has finished or ended at 80 seconds. The gradient of this curve after 80 seconds is 0. That means there is no reaction. Now, a second data set was collected with a higher concentration of dilute acid, but the same size magnesium strip. Could you sketch the shape of the data graph that you would expect to obtain? Stop, restart when you're ready. Okay, so we've got a higher concentration of dilute acid, but the same size magnesium strip. So we'll end up with the same end volume because we've got the same size of magnesium strip. But because we've got a more concentrated acid, the rate of reaction as represented by the steepness or the gradient of the data curve will be greater. So we've got a steeper curve, meaning the reaction is faster. The maximum volume is the same, but it is collected in less time. If you recall, with the first data set, it was 80 seconds. The second data set, we reached the maximum volume at 60 seconds. So the second reaction is evidently faster. An alternative method for collecting the volume of gas produced is by the downward displacement of water. So this gas being produced here, so we've got hydrogen peroxide and manganese dioxide, for example, producing oxygen gas. It's bubbling up and displacing water from the measuring cylinder, the inverted measuring cylinder. We can take the volume of gas collected against time and achieve the same sort of data set as previously shown. Now, the common errors, you should be aware that it's very important that the inverted measuring cylinder is full of water at the start. A common error is to start with some gas, some air in the cylinder. That will affect your results, of course, cause an inaccuracy. When you pour the liquid hydrogen peroxide or any other liquid reactant into the reaction vessel, the conical flask, you need to quickly replace the stopper, otherwise gas will be lost. All of the gas won't be transferred into the inverted measuring cylinder. So pour the liquid reactant into the flask and quickly replace the stopper. Parallax, you may have come across this as an idea in physics. We need to make sure that you're taking readings with your eye parallel to the gradations on the measuring cylinder. If you are taking readings at an angle rather than in parallel, then an error in those readings will occur. So avoid parallax errors in reading volumes. It's particularly true for this method, although it is of course also true for collecting gas in a gas syringe. Now, the sort of evaluation that you are expected to carry out would be comparing the advantages or disadvantages of using a gas syringe compared to the downward displacement of water. So I've got 3 rows here with 3 ideas with only one comment, one for the gas syringe. I haven't got one for the downward displacement of water. I'm asking you to think of what that comment would be. Similarly, I've got 2 comments for the downward displacement of water. What would be the counterpart comment for the gas syringe? Stop. Think about statements that could be made about, for instance, the solubility, insolubility of gases using the downward displacement of water method, and similarly for the 2 other ideas. Write something down, come back to check against my answers when you are ready. Okay, so using a gas syringe, well, the solubility of gases is irrelevant. You can collect soluble gases and insoluble gases, but the downward displacement of water, of course, the gas is bubbling up through water. Well, if it's soluble, you're going to lose volume. So the downward displacement of water method is not suitable for collecting soluble gases, for example, carbon dioxide. Onto resolution, which is the smallest increment or smallest gradation shown on the measuring cylinder scale. So the lowest resolution on the measuring cylinder is usually 2 centimeters cubed. What is it on a gas syringe? Okay, well, it has a higher resolution. Volume readings are generally to 1 centimeter cubed. So you've got a higher resolution on the gas syringe, so we get more precise results. Parallax errors are very likely to occur on the downward displacement of water method because of the speed with which you have to take the volume readings. However, they are less likely in the more controlled method using, or the more controlled instrument, the gas syringe. And now changes in turbidity or cloudiness, not specifically itemized in the syllabus, but often examined. You will recognize this reaction as the disappearing cross experiment. The reaction between aqueous sodium thiosulfate and dilute hydrochloric acid produces a cloudy precipitate of sulfur. The reaction mixture starts off at time 0 as being transparent, and you're looking through the reaction mixture at a cross that's placed underneath the reaction vessel or conical flask. As time goes on, the precipitate forms and obscures the cross from vision. The longer or the time it takes for that cross to disappear is a measure of the rate of reaction. It's quite simple to vary the concentration of the solutions, the thiosulfate or the hydrochloric acid, or the temperature. Can you think of a couple of examples of factors that have to be controlled, that is, kept the same between any series of experiments, for example, investigating the effect of temperature change on this reaction? What would need to be kept the same? Could you come up with 2 ideas? Come back to see mine when you are ready. Okay, so the position of the eye must be constant. If we're asking the observer to time for when the cross disappears? Well, the position of the eye is a significant factor, so that must be consistently the same. The depth of this solution, in other words, the total volume of the reaction mixture, must be kept the same. Obviously, a deeper solution would be more obscuring, so we must keep that the same between different tests. I mentioned on the previous slide experiments involving carrying out the disappearing cross at different temperatures. Well, how would we control the temperature of a reaction? There's a standard technique for this that I'm going to set out in front of you. It involves the use of a water bath. So here is our conical flask, for instance, with the disappearing cross reaction mixture, and we have the water at a controlled temperature. So we've got a surrounding water bath in which we place the conical flask. So hot water is added to the water bath, for instance from a kettle, to achieve a desired initial temperature. And of course, we need a thermometer to measure that temperature. Or an alternative is, rather than using water from a kettle, you could heat the water bath over a Bunsen. Bear in mind that a few minutes is needed for the reaction solutions inside the conical flask to reach the same temperature as the water in the water bath. So that's something to consider in writing a method. Now, a water bath is also used to keep the reaction temperatures the same throughout a reaction. For instance, if a reaction is exothermic, and you're trying to investigate the effect of concentrations on the rate of that reaction, well, it might be a good idea to keep the temperature of the reaction mixture constant throughout the experiment. That can be achieved with a water bath. Well done for finishing the class. If you need more practice, use textbook questions and then past paper questions. Keep to that order. If you want more classes, look at the course list and links in the video description. If you found the class helpful, please recommend it to a friend. Subscribe for new classes, online assessment opportunities and exam tips. Please like, and comments are always appreciated. Thank you for watching.